Fashion show, fashion show.
Fashion show at lunch. I'm channeling Mindy Project Pilot.
I love it. Wait, that's so good. I just did lurid floral.
Yeah.
Not lurid, sorry, Ashechi, I love this top very much. And we kind of have a little color match.
Yeah.
Earrings, I also forgot earrings.
My hair is so dirty, but it is what it is.
Where's my coffee?
Important.
Banter. It's done. We have a cold open. Hi, I'm Broma.
And I'm Radhika.
And together we're...
Prom Rad.
Today we are going to be talking about one of our favorite creators, Mindy Kaling. If you know us, which again most of you do, you know that her work has been critical to our growth as artists, and also just like as viewers, we have enjoyed it so much since we met, since before we met. But that was like an early thing that we bonded over. I already want to tell the stories, so yeah, we are gonna go
I
through.
was literally gonna say, I think we have to tell the
Yeah.
story
Yeah,
of.
we will. She has a new show out on Hulu called Not Suitable for Work. It is premiering weekly on Hulu, but we wanted to kind of do a little bit of a primer about revisiting Mindy's career and everything that we have loved in that body of work.
I feel like we say the word representation a lot, just like as journalists and as critics and commentators in the space, but Mindy really was probably the first Indian American person that I saw on screen. Kelly Kapoor was the first time I saw her on The Office, and it's not like I was like, oh my god, I am her, but it was just cool to see someone who looked like us and was being zany and being weird and being clingy and all the things and just being her own fully realized person on screen. That, like you said, it kind of opened our eyes to what is possible, and we've really looked up to her as an artist, as someone who is constantly mining her own history and mining her own experiences, but putting very relatable twists on them. And I think it's really cool to see her trajectory. She starts at The Office and then she's really doing work that stars herself and now taking a step back and is doing things that are her experiences from before, but putting the Gen Z twist on it or putting the younger millennial twist on it. And I just love to see how she sees her experiences as universal things for our community, but also has a very singular, unique vision on what those things are.
I want to respond to two things that you said directly. One is that yes, we use the word representation a lot, but I want to also defend that because, as we've mentioned, we met in college, we were comm majors, we were writing 14-page papers about representation every semester, like before a lot of people who currently throw that word around were ever made aware of it. And that's something that we kind of discuss and get frustrated about sometimes is a lot of these conversations feel very surface level, and I'm like, well, let me see your sources because I have those
Bibliography for us all day.
APA style.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think we initially kind of latched onto Mindy because it was a South Asian face on television. But then became very clear very quickly, like she was also writing on The Office while performing, that she was extremely funny. And she became, from the beginning of her career professionally in Hollywood, has been this formidable comedic voice to watch and has turned into then now this powerhouse producer. And it was a gradual transition, but it makes perfect sense. And like, I know that mileage varies in how people respond to her work or how they feel about her performances and the characters she has put out there. But I do think that, like, objectively, factually, you have to agree she is one of the most successful and interesting creatives of our time.
A word that could be used as trailblazer. I really do think that she is one, and specifically for our community. And like you said, there's been so much conversation and maybe some backlash to the way that she's done that. But I think, once again, we're not a monolith. You can't have one person shoulder that burden. And I really appreciate the things that she has done and the versions of our stories that she has put on screen. I think that's nothing to sniff at. And I do see myself in a lot of those stories. They're not one to my experience, but jumping ahead, never have I ever. I wrote an entire essay about how that was not my experience growing up, but I still could see myself in that story. And I think that's really important, especially for communities of color that usually don't get to see that on screen.
Whenever that kind of discourse is dredged back up, I'm like, okay, but she's not your therapist. She's a comedian and a writer and a producer. If there's stuff to work through representationally, if you don't relate to Devi or you do, or like which aspects of her, that is unfortunately not this person's problem or responsibility.
And there are universal truths in there still. So we can do a whole episode on how we feel about the backlash
Right.
and the discussion. Should we tell our story of our one and only Mindy interaction? The year was 2011. Jason Segel et al. Were filming a little film called The 5-Year Engagement in our little college town, Ann Arbor. We were doing spring semester there, and word spread that one Mindy Kaling was going to be part of this movie, and so we low-key stalked the production and
Which was just like a pastime, I will say. Like that year, there
yeah.
were like multiple movies that were filming there because of the film tax incentives. And so it just became a thing as a student to be like, I'm going to show up at like this location and spot a celebrity and then go about my
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, and we weren't like interfering in any kind of way. We were sitting across on the curb, just like watching people walk back
It
and forth
was
between
so
trailers.
hot.
She was had a very small part in the movie, but we were so just hyped to see her in the flesh. And
What did you think was going to happen?
I don't know. I think maybe we thought that she'd see two brown girls across the way and like invite us into her trailer or something.
Like, and
I
I'm sure
I don't know that I like
subconsciously,
had an objective going into it.
yeah, I mean, I think it would have just been like, oh, it'll be fun to like see her and tell her like I'm a big fan. Like that was the time when like that probably would have done it for me as an interaction.
Even if she had just like waved, which I think she did wave.
She did wave because we lost our
She did
minds.
wave. But I think if we had been able to get closer to just be like, hey, like your work means a lot to us, that would have probably scratched the itch for both of
Because it was
us.
also this summer that her book had come out. Her first book, Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me? And so I think that's why also like fandom was high because that book is so great. That book is so
Yeah.
fun and so funny. I mean, I haven't reread it in a while, but that was my feeling at the time. And I enjoyed the next one. And we're overdue another. Part two is that in winter of 2014, she did a book signing in New York at Club Monaco, which is a clothing store. They have a little like book store area, coffee shop thing, which we didn't know, but also it's very tiny. And I don't think really is grounds for hosting a book event there. Regardless, that's what happened. The line went like around the block, waiting to get in and like get her our book signed and meet her or whatever. It was like January or something. It was cold.
It was like
And
dead of winter.
we kept going into Starbucks to get like a hot drink to hold and also but then had to go back in to use the bathroom and they were like enough please and at some point an employee came out and was like hey we're gonna cut off the line because like no one else is gonna get in tonight and I remember this is like early part of my like producer brain myself being like well you should have cut off the line hours ago then and like spared us that night in like the middle of the night I woke up classic. And Mindy had tweeted, and she was like, "Hey, if you came to my book event tonight in New York and you couldn't make it, I'm so sorry. Please DM me." Did I wake you up?
Yeah. We were like, we both have to submit just in
Yeah, I
case.
think I woke you up and was like, "We need to tweet at Mindy Kaling right now." It's like 1 a.m. She responded to every single.
I have the screenshot somewhere still.
She sent us both signed books and like a note also saying like, "Sorry, I missed you in New York." I told someone that at the time, and they were like, "What a class act! Like, who would
Yeah,
do? No one has to do any of that."
100%. I still have that framed on my bookshelf.
Me too.
I will always cherish that. Again, because like you said, class act, she didn't have to do it, and it just showed how much fans meant to her. And we've supported her since day one, so it like really did mean a lot to us to get that. And we did everything we could to be there, but couldn't. And we still got some sort of acknowledgement that we had tried, and I really appreciated that from her. This last installment of our saga is that it was for her second book signing. So it was McNally Jackson Soho.
It was October 16th, 2015.
We both were working these full-time jobs that we both had to somehow sneak out of early because we were like, the last time we just didn't get in line early enough, and that was the whole problem. But this time we made a plan, and I think we both left work early. And this is where things got a little unhinged. We were like, should we write her a letter about our two missed connections? Because we were like, Mindy's a romantic. She would find this so endearing, actually. We did what any sane fans would do, and we literally wrote this letter to her. And then when we got up to the front, we gave it to her, and we explained. And she responded, and she said, oh, so it's quite romantic then. We
Yes.
literally were like, yeah, exactly. We're in love.
That's called media training.
Yeah.
It's,
And so we have that signed book too. I doubt she ever read that letter, honestly, but that's okay.
that's okay. I think we needed to write it to like wrap everything up for ourselves. So maybe we didn't need to give it to her, but I'm glad we did that part. And then we went, yeah, and then we immediately went to like get a
We got
drink down
mojitos.
the street. and then recorded a 17-minute voice note about the experience.
You have to send that to me. I want to hear how unhinged we were.
That was our first podcast. I think worth noting that's so early in her career still, but like even at this point, and early in our now at that point adult lives and creative careers, she just loomed so large as an influence. As like again a person who was doing it well, obviously a person from the Indian American community, all of that together. Representationally speaking, sure, it's like she was one of the only ones, but she was doing exactly like the version of it we wanted. Previous examples often would be someone who is an actor or a model or a host or something like that, but it hadn't just been like a funny writer before.
And I think as far as being like she's from our community, she's also self-made. Like she literally just took chances on making her own stuff, and I think we took so much inspiration from that of we just have to put ourselves out there and try stuff. You know, something that my parents say to me a lot, because they're very supportive of creative aspirations, but they're always like, we don't know how to help you. Like, we don't have connections in this space, you know, so you're kind of on your own in that way. Like, we will morally support you and be there financially if you fall on your face. But in terms of actually being able to, like, you know, there's no Nepo babies in this community for the most part. In the Indian American community, it was very much we had to forge our own path, and I think that was another reason why she really resonated with us, because she did that and is a successful North Star of what that could look like for us. That's a lot of preamble we should get into. It was important preamble.
Well, I think that's also a good kind of segue into starting talking about her career. Her first job was writing for The Office, which she ended up getting cast in as Kelly from episode 2 onward. And my first introduction to her was that show and the Diwali episode specifically. My friend in high school had like literally invited everyone over to her house and was like, we're gonna watch this show.
It felt like we were in on the joke for the first time. Like, not for the first time, but in terms of seeing our culture on screen, but poking fun at it in a way that wasn't Harold and Kumar and that kind of stuff.
I didn't know that TV comedies were like that. Like there's still like sitcoms and stuff with laugh tracks, or the big thing that at the time was reality TV. So I didn't know that I needed this and that I liked this, and clearly there's a space for it. It was fun. And then the Diwali episode, to this day, I think is, if we're gonna talk representation, and we keep talking it, like such a great, like I cannot believe that got made in 2006. Anytime any criticism comes up of her, truly I'm like, but do you understand like how important that was and what was built off of it? Not to like sanctify her as a creator, but that was massive. And like at that point we're talking about someone who is maybe 26 years old. She's the only woman of color in her workplace. I don't know if I've seen this out there, if like Greg Daniels asked her to do that episode, but it came about and she executed really well. And anything that she didn't know, Kelly's lack of knowledge is like built into it as a joke. They had great songs, which they actually cleared. It wasn't just like vaguely Indian sounding stock music, which I have had enough of for the rest of my life. Yeah. Which begins with like Dwight knowing about the Ramayana and the story of Diwali actually, which is like such a fun little turn.
I actually think it's so important to point out this episode because one of the criticisms that get slung at her so much is that she's not in touch with her Indian roots. And I think this is a perfect encapsulation of growing up here and sometimes having to sacrifice, especially because she is a little bit older than us. She's still a millennial, I believe, but like the older millennials and Gen X really had to sacrifice a lot of their cultural connection in order to fit in and assimilate. And that was a much bigger thing when she was coming up compared to when we were coming up and even people younger. So I think it's huge that she's still found an avenue to represent her version of what being an Indian American is. And it's having a Diwali party at work and having people not really understand what's going on. And it's like exactly what is her experience and also what was necessary at that time on TV.
I think people know the impact, the legacy, the massive presence of that show. Even while it was on, like it did well, it did super successful. I want to say by like seasons 4 or 5, they were churning out episodes. They had like one after the Super Bowl. It was unprecedented, the level of success that this, kind of awkward to real mockumentary style show got, and she was part of the team that built that. A big part of The Office's popularity and legacy, I think, also developed in the past 10-ish years when it became available on streaming and new generations have discovered it, enjoyed it. People our age who I think weren't watching it at the time have come back and watched it. People rewatch it like crazy. They love to quote it. Someone, during one of the like mini Mindy like backlash episodes, someone used the Michael Scott gif of him being like, oh God, please no, which I think is from when Toby comes back. And Mindy quote tweeted it and was like, I wrote this episode.
Like Casual has written some of the best episodes of TV. I think it's great to see that she was such a breakout character because she was highly unlikable in a lot of ways, but also hilarious and just unhinged in the best way. And both her writing and her performance were propelled into national spotlight, into the fact that she then got her own show after The Office, which was our beloved Mindy Project, moved to Hulu.
Once the pilot was made, Fox released it online like the summer ahead of the premiere. So for months you could just watch that pilot, and we did over and over.
Yeah. The Mindy Project is set in New York City. She plays an OBGYN in homage to her mom. And it's just a lady unlucky in love, but crushing it at work, and just the trials and tribulations of dating in New York, having a sparring relationship with some of your coworkers.
Her trials and tribulations are crucially that she like meets too many hot men.
Yeah.
Like,
And
an absolute parade of cuties who Mindy wanted to kiss coming in and out of the
the
show.
guest stars on that show, I rewatched 2 episodes today, and I was like, oh my God, Bill Hader was in the show. I completely forgot. And then Glenn Howerton, Adam Pally, like all these people that I just forgot were on the show. Ed Helms was on it. So it's just like she just got her friends together, and it's so fun. But also it's funny because she cast a lot of them as her love interests. So what does that say?
Yeah. I think she said that in her book too, where she was just like, yeah, I just like picked hotties who I wanted to kiss.
Yeah. As you should. If you have that kind of power, that is how you should be using it.
Sometimes I was like, I don't find this love interest of Mindy's attractive. But that's kind of how it is. Like in life,
Yeah.
you are not supposed to be attracted to this other person's partner necessarily. And she romanticized men who weren't necessarily being put in that position at the time. Like Bill Hader is a great example. He was only known as being like an absolute weirdo on SNL. A great weirdo, very, very talented. But like I didn't know he was handsome. I think I still just respect him as an artist.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know that it worked in terms of like, I don't find a lot of these men as people that I would want to kiss, and that's completely fine. That is her prerogative. I guess this is a good time to touch on the constant conversation about her casting white men as her love interests, which is a thing that happens, and like we can't deny that that's a fact. That is her worldview, and that is her experience, and that's all that we can say on it. Like personally, not my type and not my preference, and that's fine. Once again, you don't have to see yourself in every aspect of a character to relate to them.
It's also something that I like in the Mindy Project era would still have been a network note even if she hadn't already done it, because they built the sitcom around an Indian American woman. They were probably like, okay, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, do I wish that if she had cast a few people of color? Yes, but I wouldn't want that to go the girls' route where Lena Dunham cast Donald Glover as her love interest that one. Like, and it just crashed and burned, and
Oh
it was
yes,
so
her
forced.
her
Her
Republican
Republican
boyfriend.
black boyfriend, yeah.
There's so many guys that come in and out of that show too. There's one Indian guy, right? I forgot who, but who he's the one who's like, you're a coconut. Christian Cordula.
Huh?
It seems like he hasn't acted in a while.
Oh, he's hot.
No, he did a TV series that ended in 2021.
Wow. What a pull.
He was in an episode of New Girl playing gorgeous male model, uncredited.
He is a gorgeous male model, so no lies detected. I did rewatch You've Got Sexed for preparation.
One of our
That's
favorites.
a classic.
I guess like to thread it to The Office and to a lot of what else we'll talk about, like she's born and raised as a creative in workplace comedies and is just really good at that. And this would also be around the time that she started working more with Ike Barinholtz and with David Stassen, who she would go on to co-create Running Point with. The characters rotate in and out. You can have your thoughts about Mindy Lahiri as a character and whether or not she has a son in some episodes. Sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. But the joke writing and the joke density, like it's clearly that is the North Star for
Yeah.
this writing staff. And for a lot of her writing staff is just like, what is the joke? How can we make this the funniest? And you really see that particular team of people in real time on the show hone that craft.
Yeah. I think this show in particular, when we're talking about representation, for me it goes beyond just seeing an Indian American face on the screen. She was a larger mid-sized woman, which is my experience also, and you just don't see that ever on screen. And it was really great to see her as someone who's still really desirable, still really not struggling to get dates. I mean, maybe a little bit, but that's more so her just sabotaging herself and things that she says and does. But like as a character, she's not written as someone who isn't desirable or is written to be the butt of the joke, which I really appreciated at that time, especially because it was a very formative time when I was watching that. I needed to see that on screen.
I think that brings us to Champions, a one season wonder on NBC.
Yeah, I did not
Which
watch. I did not. I think I watched one or two episodes, and I don't know why. I just, didn't happen for me.
This one she co-created with Charlie Grandy, who she will collaborate with again on Sex Lives of College Girls, and also I think directed a few episodes of Not Suitable for Work. So again, you see the same people popping up here and there. Mindy is in the first episode of this. She plays a woman who had a child. The biological father, played by Anders Holm, does not know until the child, played by Josie Toda, is dropped off at his doorstep. Josie's character is now obsessed with theater and is like, I have to live in New York, I have to get the best training, and then I have to be on Broadway and like become an actor. And so Mindy's like, all right, you're your dad's problem now. So they move in together along with the uncle, who is played by Andy Favreau, who is, I have not seen in anything else, is so funny.
Really?
Who's his character is kind of the like the Ike Barinholtz equivalent on this one of just like fun little sidekick. And it's this like odd couple, odd trio, I guess. Again, very like classic sitcom premise. We don't know each other and now we're roommates. We have to build a relationship, but who are you? And it's very cute. It has like a lot more heart than I expected. And at the same time, Vince, Anders Holm's character, is also like, he was a single man. Now he's like a single father, so he's trying to navigate that. He's still dating. He and his brother run a gym. So they have like a lot of kooky characters in the workplace still. Again, that workplace element is always there.
Yeah.
Except for in the Never Have I Ever, where it's not.
where where it's decidedly not the same. It's actually really interesting to look back at this because again, I didn't watch it, so I can't comment on the jokes or the show or anything, but this is the one time I feel like that Mindy's show has not automatically been renewed for season 2 or like is weird because I guess she hasn't really reached the pinnacle of like now anything she puts out is automatically getting multiple seasons and people are clamoring to be on it and all of that. So I wonder what the reason for that is for this one to not have.
It didn't even get a full season order. Like, you can watch the whole thing now, but it's like 13 episodes.
Yeah, I really wonder what happened there.
So the next one is Four Weddings and a Funeral. This is born out of Mindy's love of rom-coms, which she has been vocal about.
Since the Mindy Project pilot,
Yeah.
probably even Kelly Kapoor is, I don't remember, but I'm sure she had some references to it somewhere. She's a hopeless romantic on the show, so
I think Kelly Kapoor definitely misread a lot of rom-coms.
100%, 100%. But that's in the joke of it all.
Yeah. So this is a limited series based on the movie, and I also don't really remember it. I'm
I
sorry.
really
I was
like it for having introduced me to Nikesh Patel, and he is a talent. And if you haven't seen Starstruck, go do that immediately. There was one part of it, there was one transitionary scene that I remember mainly because of the music that she used, and it was Ain't No Sunshine mixed with an Indian song that now I don't remember. Let me see if I can Google it. Dimi Dimi Ain't No Sunshine by Naughty Boy and Hussein Manawar. I don't know where I pulled that from, but that's lodged in my brain. That and just it being set in like Notting Hill or wherever in London, and it's just absolutely gorgeous houses and them just walking around on those streets. I was like, this is aspirational for sure.
I liked John Reynolds as a love interest.
I liked what she was trying to do, and I liked the inspiration. I just was like, I don't know that I needed 4 hours of it, but once again, I think revolutionary for the time. Nikesh Patel, man of color. I feel like I keep coming back to that of just being able to see us in different lights on screen and in different ways that we hadn't been seen before.
Well, and to your point, I don't think he would have been the lead in Starstruck if we hadn't seen him in this.
Yeah.
And also part of the overarching picture of her career, she's getting better on all of these. She's learning something as a writer or producer, acting or not acting, and like with her different collaborators who was right for each project. Like that stuff is all going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing, and why her last couple projects have been like so potently good.
And I like that she just got to do this. Like this is clearly a passion project for her, and I'm glad that she was able to explore what it was to her. And I think it's always fun to see people's takes on those types of stories. So like I don't hate it. It wasn't like I wouldn't put it in like the top 3 of my favorite things that she's done, but I enjoyed it at the time that I saw it.
That brings us to Late Night, which is the feature that she wrote and starred in with Emma Thompson. Once again, a parade of white men, but that's actually very much built into the story where she is hired as the only female writer, woman of color, on this late night show whose host is this very old school, honestly, like Deborah Vance
I
type.
was
Like,
about to say.
at the time, we didn't have Deborah as a reference, so it was Miranda Priestley. It was just like, oh, this is run by this kind of like old school white woman who does not really care about furthering the cause for other women, doesn't care that this is an Indian woman in her writer's room, and so they butt heads a lot, but then end up kind of working together and finding a good voice together. I remember loving this movie. I have not watched it since,
Same.
but I was like, wait, this is really good. And like for Mindy's writing, I was like, this is one of the tightest things she's ever written, not least because it is like 90 minutes of that story and not multiple episodes.
Yeah. I was going to bring up Hacks because immediately I think it's interesting that so many female comedians see that as kind of like North Star, something that has not been reached. But then you think about the one woman who has had a late night show that was on NBC was a woman of color, and it was Lily Singh. It's a fascinating subject that it seems like is still percolating in comedians' minds of like, this is a pinnacle that I feel like women have been held back from. It's also interesting to put it in conversation with Hacks, knowing that when you look at Hacks, it's a very white show, actually. Aside from the two leads, I know they had the writer's room in season 4 when they were actually doing the show, but it's like those people didn't really have like actual voices on the show. And so I really liked that this was an entry that she did. Again, same deal with you, have not rewatched it probably since I saw it in theaters when it came out, but another thing that I'm really glad she got the opportunity to do it. I think it was her first and only feature.
Like you said, Hacks has still used that as a North Star, the late night show, and that's a much more recent show. And we still don't have a locked in female late night host on network. When late night came out, it was this is a conversation and we need this. And I think around the same time is when Lily got her show, which only went for like one season and got canceled. Samantha Bee was on cable, but then that got canceled too. And it just has become this kind of accepted thing of like, yeah, late night hosts are white men and that's all that's gonna work.
Yeah, and now I don't even like now the conversation has shifted to a different thing, which is like, is late night viable at all? And so now
Yeah.
there's no room for women to even be part of the conversation because it's like if white men can't do it, then no one can. Okay,
And now we get to.
I think this is our collective favorite on the list. I think it's mine for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is Never Have I Ever, which came out really in the thick of the pandemic. I remember this so clearly because we were locked down together.
I think the show was supposed to premiere in March and then they delayed
To
it,
May, I
but they still
believe.
gave us the screeners. And so you and I were just like, just sat.
I don't want to say representation again. I feel like I keep going back to that, but it's such an important story for both of us. So it is set in high school. It follows this character, Devi, played by Maitreyi Ramakrishnan. And in the first episode, we see that her father has passed away and she's having like a physical response to that has rendered her in a wheelchair. It deals a lot with grief, which was kind of unexpected for a Mindy project. What made it so special to me was not only seeing our lives reflected in just like the mother-daughter dynamic between her and Purna Jagannathan's character, and kind of that tension of trying to be yourself and bucking against what tradition tells you to be and do. But then there's this element of grief and figuring out like how do you forge forward when you've lost the one person in your family that you feel like understands you. It's such a great portrait of all of those things combined and just adolescence in general, of trying to figure out who you are. I just really, really connected. I think we both were like so floored by how mature it was while still being really funny. It didn't lose her comedic roots, but it added so much heart and emotion that I don't think we were expecting from Mindy.
And it's still fun as a rom-com, which she's so good at. It was her first show about teenagers, and I think does a really good job of that. When people criticize it, I do get very defensive because it's so much more than the surface level, than the log line. People watch and they're like, oh, this Indian American teen figuring out her identity or like being a brat or whatever. And it's just so not about that to me. I needed to see an angry girl dealing with her grief. I didn't realize how badly I needed to see that and how unexpected, like you said, it was that it came from this source, which made it even more cathartic and healing to go on that journey with her.
Yeah, and this goes back to the essay that I referenced at the beginning that I wrote. I haven't dealt with grief on that level, and I have never characterized myself as angry. So there was a lot of Devi that I did not really relate to. And there was so much of her kind of chafing against her Indian identity or her Indian background and the culture and really wanting to figure out who she was in that. And I had a very different upbringing. I went to Balvihar. I did dance class, like similar to you. Like we were pretty immersed in our culture, and we have a lot of Indian friends or brown friends, and we did, you know, Indian Student Association stuff in college. Like there was so much that we opted into doing that was culturally relevant to us. And it was interesting to see Devi kind of be the flip side of that. And we both know people like that who just have never really had that pull and wanted to do those things. And I think it's really important to see both sides of that. And they address it head on. I think it was the Ganesh Puja episode where like someone is talking to her about it and they're like, why would you not want to be part of this? And it's like, so they're like definitely having that conversation. And I just really appreciated that that was happening. And I don't know, I just love the show.
I would love to hear from people like what their specific qualms are if you have them, or like what about it resonated with you, because it also feels deeper and more fleshed out than a lot of the others. Like the Mindy Project, the characters are so in and out that you don't really get to know anyone really properly besides Mindy and Danny, and I felt like Never Have Ever is very solidly set up from the beginning around this nuclear family, so you get to spend more time and get these totally rich stories for Devi, for Kamala, for Nalini, for other people who come in, for like Ben and Paxton and everyone, and as a show, as a story, it's very, very satisfying.
Yeah, and on that point, I really think the mother-daughter relationship is one of the most beautiful and complicated that I've seen, and I think that is really resonant for a lot of people. You don't have to be Indian to feel that, and again, another universal thing. It was just great. I loved it.
Then we have The Sex Lives of College Girls, which is goofy and fun.
I really liked that she was tackling college because I think we've both talked about how there just aren't college shows on TV, and that was one of the most fun times of my life, was going to college and just doing dumb shit. I think that's really where I figured out who I was more than in high school. So I was like really looking forward to the show. I love that she makes all of her brown girls really messy. It's a pattern for her.
Villa is a psychopath.
And that's my thing. There was no redemption arc for her, in my opinion.
No.
Like, she just kept doing dumb shit and not learning from her mistakes, which really annoyed me.
And it felt like the writers like kind of painted themselves into a corner with that, where they're like, okay, and now she's done this like the most insane thing and she's leaving the school. But just kidding.
I have no problem with writing yourself into a corner because that always breeds the best and most interesting narratives, is when you have to dig yourself out of the hole that you've put yourself into. I just don't think that they succeeded at that. And especially, I think we're always very protective over the brown characters on the show. So I was very much like, I actually like that she's doing some unhinged stuff. It's just like, she needs to learn from those mistakes and then not do them again. And it was just like, she kept making the same mistake over and over. And I was like, let's move on from this.
This one in particular, it felt like Bella was the Mindy conduit in the show, because she came in wanting to be a comedy writer, wanting to like work for the college humor magazine, and then get pulled into late night. Yes, oh my god, late night and SNL, which was the path when Mindy was that age. But even when the show came out in 2021, I was like, I don't think that's really a viable path anymore. And like, if we're setting the show in the modern era and having this like Gen Z protagonist, she's gonna make TikToks. That is her path to success, and I bless her. But the way she was talking about that career path, I don't think anyone your age is saying this because they know it's not true.
Yeah.
I have devoured it. I do, every time I watch it, wonder why nobody behaves like a human being. Pauline Chalamet is so fun. She's so funny.
Yeah. I'm surprised she hasn't done anything. Like, she was very briefly in The Devil Wears Prada. She's in one like boardroom scene, and I think she might say like 2 words, which makes me think that she had a bigger role that just got cut. But it's interesting because it's like every guy just falls in love with her, and I'm like, she's very plain on the show, and like that is her character, is to be plain.
She's cute.
Yeah.
She's quirky. She feels like a non-threatening cute quirky, and then they get to know her and then they're like, but you're also insane. You're all insane.
Yeah.
Women being insane, and I endorse.
Yeah. In the first season, the one black character, Whitney, has this like weird affair with her soccer coach, assistant coach. I didn't love that as a storyline, but also he was portrayed as a loser. He didn't really have anything going for him. Sometimes when she does those affair storylines, I'm like, I just wish there was something more interesting at play here.
Okay, so then This happens. This has left a weird taste in my mouth. Also, the animated Velma series came out in between, and that was just
I forgot about
we can.
that completely.
That was the most recent and most intense wave of backlash I remember because the Velma character was like consistently self-hating about being Indian American. Sometimes it would be like a conversation about something else, and she'd be like, "My hairy Indian
Yeah.
arms" or something, and I was like, "Why would it?" No one's
No one has commented on it, and it's
like
not.
in the weird in that self-loathing way of like you're bringing it up before someone else can, but like
Yeah.
it was just very uncomfortable to watch. And actually Bella did a lot of that in Sex Lives of College Girls, which I didn't like. She would in the early episodes say stuff where she's just like, "Oh, I used to just be like an Indian nerd," and I was like, "You can call it just a nerd. Why you gotta bring that up?"
Yeah.
Anyway, so that happens and things are tense. And then we get a little show called Running Point. I mean, we've done a whole episode on it, so you can listen to that for our season 2 analysis. I inhaled the show. I think I watched 8 episodes in one sitting of the 9 that Netflix first gave. Again, workplace comedy. We are back. Comedy powerhouses in this cast. The combination of Kate Hudson, Scott MacArthur, Drew Tarver, Justin Theroux. I said Drew Tarver and not Carrie Dweck. Jay Ellis, like all of these people are so good together, so funny, so attractive. To our point about in our Hacks episode about workplace comedies that I don't know anything about, like the NBA and what that's like as a day-to-day workplace, or what it's like to have three siblings fighting over your family fortune and business. But man, they made it look fun. It's such a great time, such a hilarious show. I can't praise it enough, and I always want more of it.
On the workplace comedy, something we haven't really talked about is just her ability to write these weird characters. Like Morgan, when he was introduced on Mindy Project, I was like, this man like should not be employable. Like he's so weird. I feel the same about the Scott MacArthur character on Running Point. Is also just a special flavor of bizarre that really is like the secret sauce of these shows. You have to have someone like that who's kind of just saying some weird aside. And she's really good at finding those characters in these shows and writing to them.
She always makes them softer. Like I think Morgan was very invested in Mindy's
Oh yeah.
personal life, perhaps too much, but like he just wanted her to find love. And then Ness in Running Point, like in one of the early episodes when they find out about Jackie, their half brother, one of my favorite moments then was they're all very like stern. They try to be very cold and distant because they're worried about Jackie and then decide not to have no contact with him, but they're like, actually we'll invite you in. And Ness just like breaks down in tears because he has this whole time wanted that and wanted to have a brother and like wants to give him a hug. And I thought that was so cute.
I love that this is the beginning of her just casting Jay Ellis and everything. And I'm here for it.
Their kids go to school together, so he can't get rid of her.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, there we go. I love it.
Yeah. I don't know if we talked about this in our episode because it's like goes without saying, but the star power of Kate Hudson, like who comes on screen and you're just like, oh, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Of course you were like the face of 2000s. I feel like I did say this somewhere.
We can say it again.
Like, of course you are the face of like 2000s rom-coms and had movies and universes built around you. She commands the screen, much the way that Isla commands the LA Waves franchise.
Yes. Got
Yeah.
him. Okay, so speaking of Jay Ellis, Mindy's latest show, now streaming on Hulu, Not Suitable for Work, which was originally titled Murray Hill. It's set in that neighborhood in New York City, and it centers on this group of early 20s recent graduates, I believe, who
Yeah.
are just trying to make it in New York City. And it's set in present day, so it's not necessarily her exact experience, but the hustle of it all is very reminiscent of her early days. And so it's basically this group of three boys that live in one apartment and then the two girls that live across the hall. And I kind of liked that they weren't just best friends to start out with, and there's a lot of tension of building that relationship of these people that actually kind of annoy you and you want to tell on them for shit that they're doing in the building, but then they slowly over time, over the course of the season, build this relationship. She's really good at building those relationships, and I liked this one because each character kind of had different stuff going on, and it wasn't sometimes in these shows you know what's coming and you know who's going to end up with each other, and I kind of liked that there were different avenues for everyone. I enjoyed this.
Yes, that aspect kept me very much on my toes. And it is the focus that it's like about the young professionals. It's more career focused than a lot of these other shows about people in their 20s hanging out, where in that case it is focused on the friend group and coming back to that and coming back to their booth at the bar, their couch at the coffee shop. But we spend so much, as much time in this show at their workplaces, that they're totally different, disparate workplaces and career paths. Some of them are starting out as assistants. Nicholas Duvernay's character drops out of medical school in the first episode to pursue a career as an actor and then takes a detour as a substitute teacher. And then two of them work together, so you spend more time in that workplace and get to know like Jay Elsa's character, who is their boss. I loved it. It felt really, again, fleshed out and lived in a good way. Also, that joke writing that I can't say enough about is just very, very present. I haven't loved a show about figuring it out in your 20s for a while, and I thought that was just because I aged out of the Target demo. But it turns out I haven't. And what I really liked about Not Suitable for Work is that it also feels evergreen. It is set in the modern day, and like you said, it might speak to Mindy's own experience being in her early 20s in New York trying to figure it out. It also speaks a lot to our experience of that and to being 10 years ago this age and kind of just like, what is my career? What is my life? Who are my people? It made me nostalgic for the city that I'm currently in.
It really made me nostalgic for New York, and especially New York in your 20s, which I think there's no place else in the world I would have rather wanted to be in my 20s. I think it is the perfect place to figure your life out a little bit. And we were running around, like we were working temp jobs, we were interning, we were trying to make film stuff on the sidewalk, and we were just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what stuck for both of us. And I think
Yeah.
it is one of the best places in the world to do that. And it was really cool to see the characters kind of in that phase of life because, like you said, it was very nostalgic, and I saw myself in a lot of that, of just what you had to do to figure out how to take your next step in a career, in a friendship, or in a relationship.
Also, I'm not generally nostalgic for my 20s. A lot of people our age will do that and they'll be like, oh man, we're old. This is the age I've been since I was 23, spiritually. So I don't,
Yes, you correct.
you know, you were there. And it was great because I aged into it and so did everyone else. But it did also make me nostalgic for my 20s, my early mid 20s, which I otherwise never am. Part of that is the fact that we've been doing this podcast and talking every week and reminiscing and working and like writing together again about that time in our lives. I've just
Yeah.
naturally started to romanticize.
I'm nostalgic for it, but no part of me wants to go back and relive being in my 20s because it was a hot mess of a decade. And I'm really thankful for all that I went through and all of the stuff that happened, but like I don't want to go back and do it again. I think it's nice to connect to the characters being in that time without being like, oh, I wish I was in that phase of life again, because I really don't.
It is healing, reflecting on it, feeling some sort of connection to it through space and time. When I've honestly repressed a lot of that too, especially the early years, because it was really hard.
It was.
It was just really hard and like directionless, and I didn't know what to do. And we also tried to find ways to like romanticize and feel fun about it at the time. But with a little bit of distance, I was like, well, no, it wasn't that. So to be able to go back a little and appreciate that there were fun moments and ridiculous things that are now enjoyable to look back on or funny to look back on is a nice experience. So in sort of in the never have I ever way, like I kind of found some healing through it.
Love that. In general, I like just hanging out in the worlds that she builds. Even in this one, I like that she's committed to having characters that are not what you expect them to be. Like the Indian character would be the one in med school, but like she swapped that and made it not that, and that is great, and I'm so happy to see that. And it's kind of crazy to feel that we're like still commenting on stuff like that. I really like Avantika as an actress. I think she was, for me, the best part of the show. Part of it is like her character knows herself so well and knows what she wants and is going after it, and I really kind of wish I was that person when I was her age in the show. Like I was not as much of a go-getter, I think, when I was like 23, 24. I was directionless. I didn't know what I was doing.
We were so afraid to trust ourselves and our instincts.
Yeah.
Some of them were wrong, but some of them were right. I think career-wise and creatively, a lot of them were right. But we just were like, well, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm not the authority or the boss, so someone else will tell me.
You live and you learn, I guess.
And you know who wouldn't do that? Is Mindy Kaling. And that's a lesson that we have
We have taken.
taken from her.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe we should have listened earlier, but I'm listening now.
Exactly. Okay, should we do our top three really quickly before we wrap?
Yes. 3 is Not Suitable for Work, 2 is Running Point, 1 is Never Have I Ever.
Okay.
I'm not including The Office because like she didn't
Yeah,
create
I'm
it.
not including that either. Okay, oh my God. The third spot is between Mindy Project and Not Suitable for Work. I really love Mindy Project. It's so uneven, but I just watching it today. I think it's also like recency bias because I literally just watched 2 episodes today and I was like, this is so much fun to just hang out.
My recency bias is toward Running Point. It just blew me away and made me so
I think I'm
happy.
gonna go not suitable for work, Mindy Project. Never have I ever. That is how I feel today. That was our Mindy retrospective, and we got very personal on this episode and
Yeah.
even told you our unhinged story.
You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share.
Email us if you have questions. Thank you for listening, and
Tell us your favorite Mindy project.
haha.
That might be the Mindy project, or might not be the Mindy project. Whatever Mindy project is your favorite Mindy project, even if it's the Mindy project, tell us your favorite Mindy project.
If a project ever did Mindy Project, it projected Mindy.
How much Mindy could a Mindy project if a Mindy project could
Good
project?
project. All right. Goodbye.
Go to bed.
Go to bed. Or we should do the Mindy Project theme song.
No!